Now we're going to walk you through the process of doing a span calibration. It's very similar to a zero calibration. So again, we have a low flow alarm here because I am not flowing any gas through the sample port, and we're on this main sample menu here. So to show you, as you can see, I have nothing hooked up into my sample input, so you're going to get a low flow alarm. In your situation, you're probably not going to get that if you have something hooked up to your sample input. So to do a span, it's very similar to a zero. So what we want to do is we want to go into setup. We want to go into calibration. We want to check a couple of things before we go ahead and do our span here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to do a span cal setup. So this menu tells us here which gases we want to do a span on when we go through the span procedure. So as you can see here, we've set to CO and CO2 to both yes. That means when we do a span, we want to span these two gases. If we don't want to span them for whatever reason, one of the gases, we would just set it to no. And there you can see it says no, so we would just be spanning CO2 and completely ignoring the CO channel. But for this case, we do want to span both of them, so I'm going to go yes, yes. So yes, so now they're both saying yes, we exit. Span settings now. So in this menu, it tells us what the span gas values are in our gas cylinder. So if you're using bottled gas to do your span calibration, you want to make sure what's on your tag is the same values here. So in our case, for this example, we have 0.4% CO and 30% CO2. To change these values, you would just press on the numbers, so like this. You put in whatever number you want, like 25, 12, whatever, let's say 12, and you just press enter and it will do it. So in our case, I'm going to clear it again and go back to 30. Oops. 30. Enter. Okay, so we're ready to do a span now. So we're saying at 0.4 CO and 30% CO2. That's our span values. So exit. Next thing we want to do, we're ready to do a span now. So we're just going to hit span. Now when you do this, you want to make sure you actually have your cal gas hooked up to your span port. So in this example here, as you can see, I have my gas going into my span port. I have nothing hooked up to my zero for now. And another thing you want to check to make sure is that you have 1 liter, roughly close to 1 liter of flow per minute. So as you can see here, we're at 1, or slightly just above it. If you're down to like 0.8, 0.7, that's okay too. It's not very critical that you hit it right at 1. So right now, what you want to do is you do want to give it a couple minutes to settle down. As you can see right now, we had some residual gas from before, so it's shot up a little bit. So I'm going to give it a couple seconds here for it to come back down to a value that was close to what we calibrated before. So as you can see here, the values are coming back down now. So in the settings column here, you see that our span values that we set in our span settings menu, 0.4 and 30. And then you see the yes and the no. That means we're going to be spanning these two gases. And this is the actual real-time gas reading. Now keep in mind, if these values are much higher than what's actually in your span settings, don't worry about it, because you could be calibrating at a different level and it is going to be off. In our case, I've done a calibration before, so my readings are going to be very close to what's in the settings column here. So when the gas readings have settled down, so it's about like a 0.1, 0.2 drift going up and down. So in this case, you see it's not moving anymore. It's fairly linear at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press set, and we're going to start going through the calibration process. So set. Now it's doing its countdown. If for whatever reason you need to abort the process, you would just press abort and it won't go through with the calibration. And now it's giving you a processing span. Okay, so now you're getting a sample purge message. That means you're letting a sample gas flow into the analyzer now. The reason we're getting the low flow again is I don't have anything hooked up to our sample import, so there's actually no flow, so that's why it's giving you a low flow alarm. If you have sample gas flowing through and hooked up to the sample inlet port, you would not get this low flow.
Morning, guys. Morning. Morning.
Morning.
Morning.
This usually does take about 2-3 minutes to purge out the gas, the cal gas. And there we go. So we did a span calibration. We're getting the low flow still because there's no gas hooked up to the sample inlet port. Now, since we didn't have any gas hooked up to the sample inlet port, it didn't allow it for a purge to go through. So as you can see, the gas values are still the same. That's because there's still gas left over in the analyzer. In your case, these readings will probably be much lower, depending on what's in your actual sample inlet, the actual gas coming into the sample inlet. And that's pretty much it.